This episode of File Underwater is brought to you by you, the listener, to File Underwater. Tell your friends if you like this show. It's not on the bubble or anything, but we'd like more people to listen to it. So if you like it, please tell your buddies. My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to File Underwater, the show where we try to convince you that R.E.M. is America's best rock band.
Yep. And this week we are talking about Fables of the Reconstruction, their third full studio album.
Fables of the Reconstruction.
Yeah.
Of the Fables of the Reconstruction.
Go to 10. Yeah.
Yep. It is a elliptical title.
Yes.
And One little thing I read where like Michael said, like, I'm so pissed that nobody calls it Reconstruction of the Fables because it could be either one. It's like, oh,
if either of them work. Also, hey buddy, your album has to be called something.
Like that we don't just have names because of fun aesthetic reasons. Like it is also because it's handy to be able to reference something by a collection of words that signify it. You know?
Yeah. Although it would be pretty funny if this was filed simultaneously under F and R.
Oh yeah. Yeah, just there's some record store that did that.
Yeah.
Like that's 100% a thing. This is the third album, third studio album, difficult third album, et cetera, et cetera. I actually like in revisiting it. I love this record.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's really going to be a really cool pairing with the next one too, because I think that they have kind of the issues that they do have are very separate. Mm-hmm. Like I think they both have issues. I think that history. The kind of popular consensus is that Life Search Pageant is like a triumph and this is kind of a misstep. Mm-hmm. I don't buy that. And I think that the weaknesses that Life Search Pageant has are interestingly reflected in the kind of strengths of Fables of the Reconstruction.
Yeah. Like if you superimpose these over each other, it would just be a flat sine wave almost.
Yeah. Because I think I'd said at some point, like this is the first like arguably not perfect album, but no, this is actually really super great.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it's vindicated by history too a little bit. Like even in the older books that I read on this, like going into the 90s, the consensus was, God, we hated this at the time among the band, but they came around on it a little bit.
Yeah. So let's talk about what the band's been doing at this time.
Yeah. So they probably hated this because producing the album was miserable. They were in this weird situation where they had been touring for basically 4 years at this point. And they had to either put out an album in the spring before college let out, or keep on touring and just wait and put it out in the fall when college is back again, because they're a college radio band. And so they had to crunch this down and record it in these weird, non-ideal circumstances for them.
Yeah. I mean, part of that is just the circumstances of the production, and a lot of it, you can't really understate the tour part. Like they have just been literally touring for 4 years.
Yeah.
And burnout was going to happen.
Yeah.
They're getting the success, like around this time, people like they're buying houses.
Yep.
Like they're getting the houses. They've made it. There's a really cute anecdote in the oral history book about Peter Buck feeling like he made it because he bought a house with a pool. And it being like the ultimate, like, oh, last year I was living in a hallway, and now I have a house with a pool, and that being such a huge deal. They can't live in it though. They're not feeling this reward from this thing. I understand that feeling of the benefits I'm reaping from this are abstract,
right?
But the toils are really real.
Yeah,
and I think that's kind of lent to this misery. That's actually like a perfect storm of misery, because that's a big thing. The other thing is they didn't record with people they're used to,
right?
Mitch Easter. They outgrew him a little bit, and he was getting pretty busy with his band Let's Active.
Yes, which was a rejected title for an Ubisoft game that was going to come out in the 2009 fitness game craze.
Is that true?
No.
It could be. Like it sounded like EA's Let's Active. Like
Yeah. I've never heard Let's Active. Have you? Oh,
Yeah. I have a double record, like a split record they did with somebody, and it's pretty good. Like it sounds like a guy who would produce early REM.
Yeah.
It's kind of like jangly rock. It doesn't sound special.
Right.
It doesn't sound like this. I get why it's exist in the place it does.
Yeah.
But it's good.
Yeah.
Like
it's a similar product or a similar flavor. Yeah.
Yeah, and it never really moved or anything. It didn't really have time to. Right. But it's. I don't think Let's Active is certainly like a pretty good band.
Yeah.
Without being great.
Yeah. Well, so in the place of Mitch Easter, they kind of had this. They shopped, and they eventually ended up with a producer named John Boyd. They wanted to find somebody who would play up kind of their folkier sound, again, in this weird amorphous folk rock genre. And John Boyd had produced for people like Nick Drake, before Nick Drake became a household name via that one car commercial.
Yeah. So they had this kind of folk producer who was there's some contention with that guy.
Right.
The next two producers, there's a little weird friction with them, and you get this sense of just like bringing in somebody outside the family. It's just like, oh, this guy doesn't really know how R.E.M. does this stuff.
Yeah.
Why are you spending all this time on these mixes? Why are you spending all this time on? And that became a real thing for the next one, but they were kind of into it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the yin yang part of it, this is when a producer came along and did kind of traditional production stuff, and they're like, whoa, like this sounds fine, leave it alone. The next one, which we'll talk about, is when the producer came in and is like, hey, I'm going to spend 70 years getting this drum sound to sound perfect. And they're like, man, this is awesome.
Yep.
Like they like total sea change in their personalities, it feels like.
Yeah.
Between these two records. But this one is when it is still kind of tough. So like history, they're all pretty kind about John Boyd now. Like they like him, they're in favor of him. But there was this kind of sense afterwards where like, hey, we hate that record, and him and John Boyd being like, yeah, that was a real failure. I kind of fucked up.
Yeah, like there was a quote that was something along the lines of, I feel like I served my role as an employee because they met their financial obligations.
Yeah, yeah, it's really, really cold, and it warmed up a little bit later.
Yeah,
like there's a part where, they everyone's kind of in history has been like, okay, no, it's not. It's actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, like everybody was pretty shitty. Like Bill Berry was like doing interviews where he's like, it sucks.
Yeah.
Like our new record sucks.
He was Leonard Part 6ing it.
Yeah, like what? That's so weird. Like you're trying to sell this thing, dog. Like and I don't really get it.
Yeah.
Like it is different and a little bit, it's gloomier and stuff than their previous records, but it's not like, it's not. I was gonna say it's not Up, but I like Up a lot. It's not as big a departure as Up.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a dirge, but it's not a death march.
Yeah, and it's a little slightly less dirgy than it seems. Initially, like if you listen to it, it's it's not quite as slow paced and dark.
Yeah, it has You Can't Get There From Here on it. Like,
yeah, which is like literally the goofiest thing they've ever done or will ever do.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, we have radio song that's like in the future.
Yeah,
you throw in a grenade, like our time's gonna run out, like Shadow of Destiny. Get the radio song.
Yeah. But
that radio song.
Oh, but John Boyd, like when he came in, he listened to Murmur and Reckoning, and he got a little bit intimidated. Like, oh, what can I do? Like, what can I bring to this? Almost is what he said in a couple of quotes. And so it got off to a rocky start just because of expectation. Like the pressure of that difficult third album fell on him as much as it did for anybody else, specifically because of that personnel change.
Yeah. Yeah. Which again, kind of a bummer historically, but in retrospect doesn't really matter. Like this is actually the album that in the behind the music for R.E.M. is their dark spot other than Bill Berry's aneurysm and quitting.
Well, yeah.
It's just literally like we had a bummer recording like session. And it does sound like a bummer, but it also kind of sounds like a cool job too. Like it doesn't like
the stuff that's a bummer about it. So they were in London in March, which I understand is pretty miserable. Like you have Peter Buck describing, I had to carry my goddamn guitar on a subway, and I had to walk in the rain.
Yeah, well, it was like an hour. It sounds like about an hour and a half commute to get there. And he's like, man, I didn't feel like picking up my guitar. I just felt like drinking a beer. I was like, this is a job, I don't want to make any, I understand creative work takes comfort. and takes, that kind of thing. But at the same time, like it doesn't, there is this kind of, I think that when in their interviews, they're not really giving enough credit to the fact that like, this is you lacking normalcy for 4 years more than anything.
Yeah.
Like this is the capper on that, but this actual experience of having a 90-minute commute isn't like people do that, dude.
Yep.
Like that's a thing. And Stipe was not like he was out doing London Underground shit.
Yeah.
Like Stipe is the one who turned out to be okay during all this. And I think that actually shows because I think one of the things when we start talking about the songs is this is as good as they've gotten lyrically, I think. And maybe as good as they'll get. Like this might have my favorite lyrics on it, which we'll get to. Like I really think this is really strong in that respect.
Yeah. But yeah, everybody was kind of, and homesickness is a thing, right? Like even if this is a band that had been on the road literally for 4 years, they had been in familiar areas. A lot of their touring was around, the American South. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that, that shows in this. Like there's a song at the end of this that it just aches with wanting to be back home, and it's weird. I don't like, I'm bringing the story to I'm talking about Wendell G. I'm bringing the story to it, but like you can hear it in the mix and then the performance and the vocal performance in the studio in a way that you can't hear it in the version that is done as a demo back in Athens.
Yeah. Yep. And this album has that reputation for being this kind of Southern Gothic kind of thing.
Yeah, the Reconstruction being a period after the Civil War, everybody knows that.
Yeah, which is another thing that like Stipe will deny and say that's not about that. He talks about it being about. There's a really great anecdote in the book where he's telling an interviewer that it's about carpentry, because he's talking to his dad about carpentry, and he says carpentry is a hobby of mine. And Peter Buck like says, no, it's not.
Don't exaggerate.
And then, don't exaggerate. And then he goes, I kind of like the idea of it, So.
Yeah. Also on top of this, Mills and Barry were not able to watch March Madness.
Yeah, because being the normies in the band, like that's what they're sad about. Like Peter Buck is like, oh, I can't believe I'm not a rock star, and Michael Stipe is off doing his thing. Like the two good old boys can't just can't watch basketball.
Yeah.
Gee,
golly, gee, Wendell G.
Yeah, Wendell G.
Yeah. This is also the period, that quote that we like to reference about everybody wanting to be down in the mix, being R.E.M. being the inverse of most rock bands. That comes from John Boyd at this time.
Yeah. Yep. And that making it very difficult for him.
Right.
I couldn't get a good mix because I would set things up and I would have somebody high in the mix and highlight it and they would all shout it down. And then you can hear that in the album too. And the album does have like a really murky sound.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And then they, of course, during this time, there's a tour for this. There was a pre-construction tour before they left the States to go record. And then they did a European tour that at least partially in Europe. And the live show that's in the show notes from this is from Germany.
Yeah.
And is a cracker. To use it's really good. You should. It's my favorite live show that we've posted as a thing so far too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love looking at it because it's very obviously being transcoded off of a VHS. So it has kind of that old timey vibe to it. Old timey being 30 years ago.
And they do a bunch of like it's a good set, like it's really high energy. They showcase a couple of songs that will show up on later albums, and they do some covers, and they are fun covers. Yeah, and we'll talk about those later.
Yeah. So things are happening in the band kind of around this time. We've talked about this before, but it was where it was solidified. They started sharing the money and the writing credit equally, and they've already done that. And they also ran the band on unanimous consensus. Mm-hmm. As I read about these guys, we laid so much sugar on them in the first episode about the way they run themselves, but just looking at how this creative enterprise worked is fascinating to me.
Yeah. As we mentioned, Buck bought that house with a pool.
Yep.
And Mills and Barry bought classic cars, which you can see in the Can't Get There From Here video.
Right.
That's their cars. Yep. And Michael Stipe bought a bunch of art.
Yep.
Because he's Michael Stipe. That's what he does.
Yeah. For as good as that live show that's in the notes is that show in Germany, they hated touring in Europe. They didn't like touring in Europe before either. When they went out in support of Murmur. They opened up for U2. Like U2 was like, hey, we really want you to to come tour with us. and they were worried that it was going to be a repeat of the incident where they opened up for the police. And it kind of was. They got up there and led with Feeling Gravity's Pull and had plastic bottles full of piss thrown at them.
Well, it's not a good opener, guys. Like they literally opened every show on this tour with that.
Yep.
There's like an anecdote from an opening band who was just kind of like, yeah, their set like became really predictable at some point. Like it was, I watched them play this song, over and over and over. And like, I like that song. All right.
Yeah.
I think that it is a really silly thing to open up a live show with.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like just what a, it's not even like, oh, we're setting a tone, because the rest of the live show would be really high energy and stuff. Like it's the same live show that they cover like Paint It Black. It's like a goofy rock show, but it starts with this dirge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As an album opener, Feeling Gravity's Pull works. As a live show, I could definitely see people being like, what the fuck?
Yeah, this is just, what is this going to be?
Yeah.
The YouTube liking them, this is something, the first time I noticed in my reading that other bands were starting to take notice.
Right.
There's a really charming anecdote right around this time. It's kind of between this album and the next one, but it was during this tour time when they were hiring this guitar tech guy who eventually they were going to hire him to play bass while Mike Mills played keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
There are all these kind of things he's auditioning for. He's really excited. He gets to they're considering it for him for it, and then one of his friends says like, hey, Metallica is looking for guitar tech too, do you want to come meet him? And like, this guy loves R.E.M., loves Metallica. Okay. And he goes to his live show and gets backstage, talks to Kirk Hammett, the noted asshole from Metallica. And he's like, yeah, I hear you want to be our guitar tech guy. And he's like, yeah, man, I would love to. And he's like, oh, I one of the guy, your friend, he told me that the R.E.M. guys were thinking about you, right? And he's like, yeah. He's like, oh, you should totally do that. Like, they're a better band. And had like a bunch of R.E.M. tapes. So like, yeah, he's like, yeah, that's the guys I'm really into. You should hold out for that. If you don't get that though, we'll take you. Like, it was just like this really, you wouldn't think that, but like, yeah, they were getting the respect of their peers in like a real serious way.
Yeah. Also, if I was that guy, I would so much rather tour with R.E.M.
Can you imagine?
I cannot imagine the fucking nightmare.
Like, just somebody send him a VHS copy of that documentary.
Yeah, some kind of monster.
And just like, look, and the oral history never like follows up with that dude, so I don't know what he ended up doing.
Okay.
So it's a real like it's a real Schrodinger's roadie kind of thing.
He's still in the gig box.
Yeah. we don't know which of those two paths in the woods he took, but like one of them ended up having having to go like, hey, I know there's coke in this town, go find it. From like Kirk Hammett versus getting to hang around and watch basketball with Mike Mills.
Yeah, it's not like R.E.M. didn't party; they drank all the time. But
they were drunks and stuff.
There was less chance you were going to be pushed face first into a jet of open flame.
Yeah, slightly less. And then also that was like right before Metallica had their like bus crash and lost their dude. Right. I can't remember the name of the guy who died from Metallica, but that was a thing that happened in the 80s. So like it's like a real Final Destination thing. Like if you get a chance, like choose R.E.M. because you're less likely to get exploded. You might just get an aneurysm, but like you're not gonna get blown up,
But then you're gonna get a farm after that. Like
that's the free farm.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, there's another fun anecdote again about the live shows. They were in Ottawa, which I understand is in Europe. And somebody shouted "fuck off" while Stipe was singing Moon River, and our buddy Mike Mills, ever the aggressor, had to be restrained, and he shouted, "You come up here and fuck off."
That's so good. we had to come up with a word for the like you're angry, so you make a nonsensical comeback. Yeah, because it's so good. No, you fuck.
You come up here and fuck off in front of everybody.
Yeah, why don't you fuck off all over the stage? It's really good.
Yeah.
So as they were drunk a lot. Peter Buck was drinking the entire time while playing shows too. A couple times he got really drunk and like threw his guitar off stage and stormed off. He wasn't sleeping during this time either.
No.
This is rough stuff with them with self-care.
Yeah. Especially for Stipe, who at this time was sick all the time and falling over because he was only eating potatoes.
Yep. He moved on. from garlic to potatoes.
Yep. So we got the Carb King up here, changing his appearance every day, appearing on stage in Glasgow covered in watches with the word dog written on his forehead.
Yeah, just being a real weirdo. But he was like sick and not doing well. But I also read stories about him like experiencing Europe culture during this time. Like it's like he's not going to miss the opportunity to go do art fuckery shit in Berlin. So. I think as far as the guys in the band, he's probably having the best time of it while still not enjoying the actual tour prospect.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that live show just kind of at the end, but there's a really good one in Germany on October 2nd, 1985.
Yeah.
And that's the one I'd recommend watching. But this tour is actually pretty well documented.
Mm-hmm.
There are several YouTubes of different shows from different dates.
Yeah. And that's the nice part about them kind of getting big like this. There is a lot of kind of professionally produced documentation of these guys as opposed to kind of the wellspring of bootlegs that popped up, in their first couple of years.
Yeah, which also still exist too. Like you still get those kind of things as well. I found a really good resource, which I usually just YouTube links in the thing, but I'll put it in there, which is a website that compiles set lists. Mm-hmm. For bands year to year. That's fascinating. Like I spend a bunch of time on there looking at like some of my favorite bands. Like what was my favorite band playing this year?
Yeah.
And what covers did this band play? And maybe I can hunt down a YouTube version of them doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. Super fun. And finding shows that you've been to is a real trip. Like it's really, really like surreal to be like,
yep. That's how that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just like R.E.M. does, they named the sides of this album, kind of cleverly. The first side is called A side, and the second side is called Another Side.
Yes. Pretty cute.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate that.
Yep.
And let's get into it. Or let's talk about the cover for a second.
Yeah.
I like the cover of this album a lot. I think it reminds me a lot of the Pixies album Bossa Nova. It's got the same kind of color scheme.
Yeah.
And stuff to it. And I think there's a really famous like Mars Volta album cover that has a guy's head on a table.
I know what you're talking
that
about.
has the same kind of color scheme. It's not like the same imagery,
but
it kind of reminds me of that palette.
Yeah, I love the hand drawn logo at the center of it over the burning book.
Yep.
Yeah. And this is also, I think, the first official one that the first official cover that has photos of the band on it, kind of at the far corners.
It's super cool. Like the first side, Fables in the beginning, and this says R.E.M. On the other side, where it says Reconstruction, there is this kind of wooden block with ears sculpted on it, hanging from a thing. Like it's very bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I got. It's moving into a weird kind of more esoteric looking art than the kind of folk art stuff they had done previous to this.
Yeah, the Howard Fenster stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. I dig it.
Let's get into it.
Yeah. Starting with Feeling Gravity's Pull. And like we mentioned before, not a great live opener. I like this as a statement about what the album is going to be, and how it's going to be different than Reckoning. Like the first track always has a higher degree of importance on it, and they wanted this to sound weird. That is the statement that this makes to me.
I think it's probably, as far as like bummer opener songs that they get into the habit of doing, I think this is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
I think one of the things, I think that is the idea, is like this is kind of a mission statement. In re-listening to this album, it is kind of twitchy and weird, but I think it's more a question of like twitchy highs and weird highs more than like kind of a general bass. I think that like the album is more defined by kind of those kind of mid-tempo, middle-of-the-road R.E.M. songs.
Yeah.
And there are more of those than songs like this. So, like, it does kind of present a thesis for the album that the album doesn't really do so much,
Yeah.
It's a cool song. Like, it doesn't sound like R.E.M.
No, especially in the guitar, like the muted, like, like the really, like, telegraph kind of sound. They're doing harmonics, which is weird for them.
Yeah. And there's a string quartet.
Yeah.
In it, which is really, really kind of awesomely low in the mix until the very end.
Yeah.
When it comes out, which I really like.
It comes out and it repeats the same bar over and over again, and it's really tense as everything kind of fades away and it's replaced with electric hum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the when I talk about the lyrics on this album being really good, I think this is the reason why is I think that this is where it hits that balance of like abstract, like feeling kind of meaningless but evocative in kind of a good way. And they're going to go hard against that in the next record, where things will get a little bit more direct. But this is just very like, there are a bunch of lines in this I really like, like, this whole it's hitting a lot of hallmarks that I like a lot. So like this whole repeated thing about it being a Man Ray kind of sky. Yeah. Like that kind of reference. I love dialogue in songs. Like I love when songs take prose structure in the middle of it. It's like somewhere near the end it said, "You can't do this. I said I can too." Like I love that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the surreality of this. It's kind of on the nose because they are referencing Man Ray, the photographer. But it is right there. Like this is just landscape and situation. Yeah. Yeah. It's also like, for being one of these kind of drone songs, it manages to be weirdly catchy at points. Oh yeah, like when it breaks into the chorus, it like immediately like shifts over and snaps into like major. And that step up. Yeah. Like part, I think that's really, really catchy and good, and kind of well sung. Like this is a good tune. Yeah. This has a music video to it that I think is really kind of boring but appropriate. Yeah, yeah. It looks like everybody's Jacob's laddering out. From a production standpoint, it's really interesting because it's like stills, but they occasionally blur and turn into action. So like it's like they shot the video and then color processed it, and then decided, okay, we're going to hang on this, and then like time shift to the next like pose that we're going to do. They did a similar video for another song for Life and How to Live It, but it feels like a better fit here, honestly. Oh, very, very much so. Yeah. Even though the lyrical content of Life and How to Live It, What It's About, does kind of deal with that kind of schizophrenic, living in two states kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That's suggested visually by the video style. Yeah. The second track on this, Maps and Legends, when I was a kid, this was my favorite R.E.M. song. Yep. Maps and Legends was my password on my first computer. Nice. And was on a lot of my like documents, like I was, would write things, and I think I've mentioned this before, but my first computer didn't have a word processor, so I wrote everything in QBasic. Okay. I would just write print before every line, and then just write prose. And then just run the program instead of like reviewing it. And the password on all those things was Maps and Legends. Nice. So yeah, this is a very good song. Like it's pleasant, nice to listen to. It has a really hooky chorus to it as well. And this does something that I love in this era of R.E.M., which is Mike Mills and Bill Berry are singing a different song in the background instead of just doing the harmonies. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And this is about, this album, I think I mentioned this in the last episode. Yep. This has a lot of biographies on it of Southern weirdos. So it is kind of like a who's who of weird Southern Gothics. And this has a lot of kind of abstract parts, but there are parts that are directly about Howard Finster. Yes. Specifically, there's this, down the way the road's divided, paint me the places that you have seen, but those who know what I don't know will refer to the yellow, red, and green, who are just going to see just the kind of colors of this. Howard Finster being the person who did the art for Reckoning, and also I believe the person who owned the statue garden that they walked around in for the video for Radio Free Europe. Yeah, an outsider artist that Michael Stipe considers a man of character and vision, or whatever. Like that's somebody who he really likes. Yeah. And I say in the notes here that it's very Road R.E.M. Like it does feel kind of up the middle for it, but like that's good. This album is full of up the middle. It's just like really good up the middle tracks. Yeah. So it's like we're getting a lot of like pilgrimage style kind of songs, like these middle ages of you kind of things. Just really good ones though. Yeah. Yeah. And this song is definitely that, where it's just like it's a little slow. It's like a little just like mid tempo kind of rock song with not like a whole lot of parts, not a lot of complexity, but is still pretty and pleasant to listen to and has nice lyrics. Yeah. Yep. And it's written with affection for somebody that they knew. If this album is to be believed, Michael Stipe spent all of his time in Athens hanging out with old weirdos.
I 100 like I think that's true.
Yeah.
Like I think it's like 100% true. I always like when I was young, I always thought it would be cool to be the person who like makes friends with old people, in this way, probably because I'd read about Michael Stipe doing it. And I've never been able to do that. I had, when I worked at the Fred Meyer, when I first moved out here, me and my wife, I was friends with a lady who was like an older checkout lady.
Okay.
And she was really nice, and at some point she invited us over for dinner, and like we went, and it was a really pleasant, but the culture part of it, I think that for me I would have to be like a Howard Finster person who like somebody who I admired their work or something.
Yeah.
Because there is you do run into a fatigue of someone just not knowing what you're talking about when you reference things.
Right.
And not, I'm not like a walking Family Guy. Like I don't just make references, but
right.
If you're just like constantly kind of having to explain things or something like that, it started making me feel really bad.
There's something about not sharing an easy and natural shorthand.
Yeah. And we had none of that common vocabulary. So like, as much as this person was very like sweet and good, and like, I liked working with them.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird. And it was probably weird for her too, because of us. Like, it wasn't like just, she wasn't being weird.
Who's this upstart eating my food?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got my recommended daily amount of old person by doing community theater.
I would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely there is that phase when you're when you're, let's say, in your 20s, and you really want to wear a cabbie hat and meet a Tom Waits character.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, well, what kind of cool wisdom is this going to get me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking for this cool wisdom.
Let's go to track 3. 3 is always where they hide the gold. This is Driver 8.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I guess in reading about it, more people talked about Can't Get There From Here, but I always thought this was kind of like the South Central reign of this album.
Yes.
Like the big single, because Can't Get There From Here is so goofy. Like I kind of like that song, but like, man, it feels like a novelty song to me.
It's out of place. It's very out of place, whereas this feels of a piece with the rest of the album, and it feels definitely closer to what they've done before and what they would continue to do. Like this is right right in the wheelhouse.
This is an like R.E.M. song.
Yeah. And they've been working on it. Like, this popped up on the tours for Reckoning.
Yeah. So yeah, this is great. This is really kind of a riff driven guitar track, and it's this low riff.
Yeah.
Ain't no money above the fifth fret.
Yeah. Or is that a thing, really?
I've heard that quote before.
Okay.
I always liked it because,
what
are you doing wheedly dealy dealing,
Yeah.
Don't give me those solos.
No. Give me this down here. And this this riff sounds very, very similar to what would take them to number 1 with the One I Love, right?
Yeah.
Like this is just playing around with the lower strings of open chords.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And the actual kind of chord progressions of this are real kind of standard, like major to minor.
Yeah.
A minor to E minor kind of R.E.M. stuff.
Yeah.
Real
Neil Youngy in that regard. And it's a song about trains. They've done this before, boxcars and such.
Yep. And with a video about trains.
Yep.
As well. Just to get that out of the way.
Footage of trains.
Very much like a lazy, shitty video about trains. Again, though, like one of the things I like about how this song does lyrics, when it's just kind of hitting all these checkpoints of things that I like, is the like self-referential part. There's like something Dan Bayard does all the time, but this he piloted this song in a plane like that one. Like that kind of like referring to the actual artifact that you're creating at the time is like a real, like something that like hits my buttons real good. So it's like, it's just a song about trains with kind of train lines and kind of the scenic imagery, but there's still those kind of tricks. Like there's a sophistication that he's running into.
Yeah.
That I like.
She's selling faith on the Go Tell crusade.
Yeah.
It's and it's very much a road song too. Like it's a song about a train operator who's incredibly tired and needs to take a break, but it could very well just be like, hey, we're in a tour bus and I wish we were home. And
it will never happen.
Right.
Yeah. Really, really good song, and a real like representative.
Yeah.
Of IRS era R.E.M.
Yeah, and this is one of the few times where I can be surprised with a harmonica out of nowhere and feel like it fits. But like, yeah, okay, that's a train. That's a train whistle. Okay,
yeah, and not want to shoot the player of the harmonica. But it's real low on my list of instruments there.
It's fine. I just like to, it's okay at a live show because you know it's coming, because they're going to be wearing that rig around their head. Like, okay, there's going to be
harmonica brace.
Yeah, well, I mean, or the Super Mario Brothers Goomba.
Yeah, oh yeah,
harmonica brace. Yeah,
you could, it'd be real. Like, let's say you got a real Hannibal Lecter situation, right? Like there's a Hannibal Lecter hanging out. He's about, look out. He gets caught. You put him in his Hannibal Lecter mobile, or whatever you want to call that thing he rides around in.
His dolly.
And if you really wanted to take the dignity out of that guy, you could really like strap a harmonica to the front of it. So like he'd still try to be like, say, mean stuff, but it would still make little harmonica sounds when you just kind of talk through it. Like Clarice. You couldn't be intimidating. Like you would try to in your head.
Yeah.
And all you'd be thinking about is how he's honking on Bobo,
The only thing more cruel than that would be affixing kazoos in somebody's nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are all things we could do to Hannibal Lecter if he was some kind of like furniture slave,
Why are we talking about torturing prisoners?
Well, he's a pretty bad guy. Cole.
Okay. Like, it's borne out.
Yeah, he's not. And this is a pretty fun torture, just to be fair.
It's fun
the torture
everybody.
It's the torture that makes him hard to get to psychologically manipulate you. The good kind of.
It's hard to establish psychological dominance when you're honking on Bobo.
Yeah, you can't. It'd be very like they tell you to imagine everyone naked. Like if you're nervous, but like imagine playing a kazoo.
Mm-hmm. I would be terrified. Naked on a stage with a kazoo. No.
Oh man. Yeah.
Not going to do it.
I love the story of this next song.
Yeah.
The kind of background of this is one of my favorite like little background details we've run into. So Life and How to Live It. This was another single off the album. So this is Michael Stipe was friends with another weird Athens old guy who had two apartments in the same building that were side by side. Mm-hmm. And he had a door between them, and he decorated them completely differently, had two closets that had completely different clothes in them, and would spend his life kind of bisected in this way.
Yeah.
He would like spend some of his time in one house and he'd be like, I'm this person. And then he would spend some of his time in this other, house and be this other person.
Yeah.
And really fascinating. And when he eventually passed, they found in his closet, he had self-published and written thousands of copies of a book about his life philosophy called Life and How to Live It. Mm-hmm. And never sold it. Never like gave them out, never did anything with them. They weren't found until he died.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
At the time I was talking about this on the Slack board, and I think it was Liam who said like there's a copy of his book on eBay for like $1,000 right now.
Oh, really?
Something like that. Like it's become like a rare thing.
Huh.
But what a cool thing.
Yeah.
Like, and a cool thing that like I do that.
Yeah, I'd do that if I bought a 2-unit house.
Yeah, I like the idea of having like this kind of place that like I like separation of spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And it does like there is a personality aspect to that. Like you are shaped kind of by your space. Like
mm-hmm.
If I had an area like this is this half of my apartment just has books in it. Like I'm gonna spend some time reading. I'm gonna go over this. It's decorated this way. It has these kind of snacks and these kind of drinks and like this kind of clothes. And this is where I'm gonna like pursue this.
Yeah.
Super cool. Like I like that story a lot.
Yeah, we should all aspire to that. I think that guy had a point.
A man of clear vision and purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like this song. It opens up with this kind of jangly guitar intro. It's not really jangly. It's very like clear. Mm-hmm. I don't quite know how to put it. It reminds me of something that would show up on like a Sonic Youth song.
Yeah, it's real clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And kind of just hits the ground running. Like this is, pretty fast paced, for this album. And again, though, is a little bit like one of those middle of the road R.E.M. songs.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing specifically super special about this. It's just kind of like a good song.
Yeah.
Like there are chords that sound good together, and lyrics that sound good, and melodies that are good.
Yeah. So Stipe's vocals on this album, and then especially in the next one. Again, it's strange how we're doing these in pairs like this. He's really pushing himself. It sounds like he's really like squeaking in this.
Yeah.
He's like struggling to get some of this stuff out.
He's up really at the upper end of his register.
Yeah.
You know, and you can hear it too, like the chorus, like Carpenter, that like it is really like up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, good song.
Yeah. So I've listened to 2 versions of all these songs, if you don't count the demos. But on Apple Music, there's the regular mix that came out. When this album came out, then there's a remaster that was done in the early 90s, I think, and that's where you get kind of all the deluxe tracks on top of it. For some reason, the remaster mix on this just buries all the cool parts of it. Like it's a weird thing where like I would say go back and listen to the original.
Yeah. And that doesn't happen very often with music.
No.
Like you see that with movies, you know, like nobody wants to watch the Star Wars where George Lucas fucked with it. But like with music, usually the latest version of something is the best. Mm-hmm. But yeah, not the case here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how the title never comes in until the last line.
Yes.
This, like the way the song kind of ends, like everything runs out of steam at the same time. You know, with him kind of like, like literally, you know, the last syllable of the lyrics is with the last note.
Yep.
You know, and it's, you know, prior to this, you know, the lyrics, he talks about like running out into the street to tell what he's hidden, you know, which is obviously this cache of books, you know, and then, you know, listen to the holler. If I write a book, it will be called Life and How to Live It, you know?
Yeah.
So.
And I like that. I like when a song ends abruptly as opposed to petering out or fading out, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. Old Man Kenzie. I like this song a lot, Gary.
This is one where I don't like it except for the lyrics elevate it for me.
Okay.
You know, it's but this is the next like dark, you know, beautiful twisted fantasy song. You know, this is another when people say this album is dark.
Yeah,
they're referring to this and feeling Gravity's Pull.
Yeah, this is part of what they're talking about. Yeah, I just love how grim the entire thing sounds. You have Stipe kind of doing this kind of constant breathless high singing over top of this really sleazy bass, telling a story about a really like shitty character.
It's written by this guy, so it's one of the very few songs that R.E.M. did that is co-written by somebody else. This is Jerry Ayers, who also wrote Wind Out with them, I think.
Yeah.
And Jerry Ayers was this guy who's like this old scenester, used to hang out in Andy Warhol's factory, but ended up in Athens. Older than everybody, but everybody likes him. Interesting dude. And they wrote this song about this guy who is this kind of, you know, again, weirdo guy in town. He used to kidnap people's dogs and hold them for ransom.
Yeah.
Or return them for the reward. You know, after people had put up these reward posters.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, one of the scummier things you can think to do.
Yeah. And and that was how he paid for all of his booze.
Yeah. Just like an old drunk.
Yeah.
Old shitty drunk. Yeah, it, you know, starts off with this bass, as we mentioned. The guitar is this kind of like doing these kind of like loose riffs over everything. The song doesn't have so much in the way of like parts. You know, it is kind of weirdly like a block.
Yeah, it's a drone is what it is. Like it repeats. It's like one big verse and then it has an outro. But like it'll say it's all punctuated by, you know, it's my folly. Talks about drinking up and then says he wants to do something, but first he has to learn how to do this other thing on top of it. And then it just repeats that loop over and over again.
Yeah, and which happens 3 times. It's like three kind of paragraphs.
Yeah.
Things which like again like lyrically I really like this. I like that repetition a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and the person is kind of, you know, this being kind of written in this third person, you know, kind of state, while still having an authorial voice that pops in.
Yep.
You know, where, you know, the author or the perspective that's being written from will kind of hold themselves accountable for things kind of partway through it.
Yeah.
You know, like, so he's talking about this other character, but then he also is a character in the song. So it has that kind of prose sense to it.
Yeah.
That I really like.
Yeah. It's very clearly not written by Stipe because it is directly a story about a person, as opposed to being kind of oblique and elliptical in its approach to its subject matter. Yeah. You know, like this is a story. Like, you know, when he went out, I was like, yeah, it's a Southern tradition and we adhere to the old ways. We tell stories, we spin yarns. Like, okay, well,
yeah. I think it's co-written. I think that Stipe did have something to do with it. I don't think it's entirely Ayers.
Okay.
Is that, I don't know if that's supported by
in the things that I read, it was like, oh, this is notable for being a song that was at least lyrically written by somebody else.
Yeah, I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sure Stipe put his own English on it.
Yeah, like I do like it. It's just musically it is harder for me to get down with.
Yeah,
I think, but I actually like that kind of like weird repetitive nature of the lyric, the cyclical part of it.
I think I'm just more tolerant of something that leans on atmosphere as heavily as this one does.
That's probably true.
Yeah, just differences in taste.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's the end of the first side.
Yeah,
you flip it over and you get "Can't Get There From Here."
It's so so this is a time when the fact that all albums now are presented without a side break that really works against this, because going from Old Man Kenzie to Can't Get There From Here,
it's pretty jarring.
They're worlds apart.
Yeah, pretty jarring. And this is like, they were listening to like a lot of kind of funk and soul at the time.
Yeah,
that musicians do that. They
only musicians listen to funk and soul.
Yeah, only musicians will get this. Music, like people who are professional musicians tend to have like an appreciation for a wide degree of musicality. Mm-hmm. Whereas like it's kind of a cliche where like a lot of people I like all music except for rap and country. Like people will say things like that, which is we talked about that to death. It's like an ignorant statement, but when you run into musicians, like a lot of times it's like, no, I love old country records, I love old blues records, I love all that. I think there is a level of that's what I was trying to get at. That's what I meant.
Mm-hmm.
So they were listening to a lot of that stuff. They were kind of inspired by it and kind of decided to take like a take at it, kind of a run at it, and it's like a weird novelty song. Like it's like this is like a goof 'em up. It's like children's music.
It's got a horn section, which I will enjoy when it is well deployed on like a power pop song. Like that can work pretty well. I feel like they're approaching it from two different directions, and even though this is a fun and good song, like melodically, I don't think stylistically it meets in the middle whatsoever.
No, it's really jarring and weird. It's interesting too, because this is a real marker of like the producer, because the producer brought all those horns on.
Yeah.
And you can listen to, on that reissue, you can listen to the Athens demos of this, and the version of this that's the demo without all that stuff like really suffers.
Mm-hmm.
Like this song really benefits from the production. One of the things too in that demo I'm really surprised is that like Michael Stipe can hit that air raid siren like note before the chorus like every time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this probably took a bunch of run-ups. That's hard.
Yeah.
But no. He just does it. Like it begins with this like, or it has this really falsetto, like I don't even know what to call it. This keen that happens at the beginning of the chorus.
Yep. I don't know how to phrase that either. It is really strange. And like he's doing like all these different voices too. It's like a fucking Isaac Brock performance. Almost.
He sings in a lot of different registers during it.
Like he opens up like it's like this with this Elvis swagger, when the world is a monster.
Yeah. It's really, it's his Elvis impersonation, and then kind of becomes medium, and then gets this like falsetto, and then gets to the chorus, which is kind of normal. Like it is it's all over the place.
Yeah. The chorus is fun. I like
the chorus is real fun.
Yeah, I mean, so I like the chorus, and like if there's anything that redeems that is redeeming about this, whenever they step out of their comfort zone, it almost always feels like it is being led by the rhythm section. So that can lead to a bummer from the drummer, or it can lead to this where like Mike Mills is having the time of his life on the bass.
Yeah, which is just like let him tucker himself out. The bass and horns and drums on this are really great. The guitar I think is pretty forgettable and dumb.
Yeah, well, it just like
it's just that like
let's just throw a wah, just a couple of wah chords in there so people remember that Peter Buck exists.
Yeah, like Peter, it feels like he didn't know what he was doing,
right?
During this, it's so goofy, even down to like the lyrical content.
Yeah,
where it's like self-referential. There are lots of little spoken parts.
Mm-hmm.
To it, and even down to the lyrics, where it's about this kind of southern place, like this this thing he talks about, if you this town called Philomath,
actual town,
with a real small town. One of the really because R.E.M. is a funny band. One of the things in an interview I saw a quote where like Peter Buck was like, yeah, they once had a post office, like as
The song has all kinds of call outs to Brother Ray. We're referring to Ray Charles.
Yeah. These different kind of call outs to the different people. He throws in. I didn't notice this until I listened to the B-side second things we're going to talk about. But he throws this line about throw your trolls out the door, which we're going to talk about in one of the outtakes for this, a song where that came from, which it's like the dumbest line in that song. And it's like, why'd you have to include, like, that's not that good of a line to like make sure that baby gets in here, buddy.
Right.
You know? It's real goofy. And this all comes through with the video too, where the video is like a monkey's video. It opens with him fast forward running towards hay bales and jumping over them. Like, it's like, what is this? What am I watching? Who is this for?
Yeah. And then it turns out the real purpose of the video was for Mills and Barry to show off their cars. Like they're going to a drive-in. And like they're just the worst like green screening and chroma keying, as like they're not just watching the movie, but like they're experiencing different dimensions outside their car as they eat popcorn.
Mm-hmm. It's extremely silly. Like, let's have these guys like in silhouettes walk with these weird masks and step. Here's Stipe dancing with a saxophone. Like, it's just like it is one of the goofiest things that they'll do.
Yeah.
Or ever done. So noteworthy for dorks. One of the things that's noteworthy about it is it starts showing his lyrics, which at the time it's really hard in retrospect to understand exactly how big like the mysticism angle of like Stipe's lyrics really were.
Yeah.
Since it was a selling point for like the first couple albums, or kind of like a discussion point. Everything I read pointed out how noteworthy it was to have some lyrics.
Well, and they did it as a
Central Rain too, a little bit, but
they did it as a fuck you a little bit. Like, just they hated doing videos, except they seem to have fun with this one. But like on the next album, when we talk about Fall on Me, like they're just kind of like, we hate video. We have nothing but contempt for this. You fuckers want a lyric sheet? Well, we'll give you a lyric sheet, and then let's just flash the lyrics up one at a time.
Yeah.
Yep. Green Grow the Rushes is it's political. And it is the first of kind of this trilogy across the next 3 albums of songs about things that America was doing in Central America.
Yeah, kind of migrant workers and stuff. This was part of a weird pact that Michael Stipe made with Natalie Merchant.
Yeah. To
write more songs about this subject. So there are 10,000 Maniacs songs that are also part of her version of the the Tontine.
Yep.
That you can listen to, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
I listened to some old 10,000 Maniacs recently because I liked that band a lot when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
But just their newer stuff, I listened to some of the 80s stuff, and it's pretty good.
Yeah. No.
This is a real middle of the road R.E.M, but I like this song a lot actually. Yeah. The chords that are in this are chords that I'm weak to.
Okay.
Like D's, A's, F sharp minors, and E's kind of put together just does it for me.
Yeah.
Those 4 chords. And I think the structure of this song is really interesting. It doesn't go into the chorus when you expect it to every time. It does this kind of will kind of reset upon itself when I don't expect that to happen. When I expect it to go into the Green Grow the Rushes section.
Yeah. It's very soft. It's kind of a reprise or another approach to the 7 Chinese Brothers. Let's just have this high E string, high B string riff that we have going on, this very high descending guitar that will go throughout the entire thing. That is built around for that particular part. And then it is this kind of mamas and papas call and repeat harmony over the actual verses themselves.
Yeah. This is we'll talk about those songs when they come up. That trilogy. There's one on the next album as well. Next 2 albums. Yeah. Each album gets one.
Yeah. There's a famous line. We would be remiss if we didn't say it. It's actually pretty good. Amber Waves of Gain.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a little bit. I think this is a little bit subtler of a cue than he will get into in the next record.
Yes.
My biggest problem with Life's Rich Pageant is it is too direct.
Mm-hmm.
Lyrically, and this is dealing with the same themes, but it's a little bit better.
It's a little bit obfuscated.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's still a little direct, but it feels a little less, eye rolly than some of the stuff that shows up on there.
Yeah.
This is also based on, there's an old folk song called Green Grow the Rushes,
Hmm.
which I have not heard, but shows up when you kind of search this. So that's kind of it's not the same song, but
Yeah.
probably a thing that Stipe heard.
It's an homage.
Yeah. That little like low bass, that little low guitar riff that goes into the kind of second chord of the verse parts of this.
The walk up.
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, I like really like that. Like the relationship between those two chords is very good. I think.
Yeah. And I don't know. So you don't play guitar. That is an incredibly fun key to play in, specifically because there is so much happening on the bottom three.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Cahotek.
I'm going to be very curious to hear if you like this.
I like Cahotek.
I really don't.
It's a lyric thing for me.
Okay.
Again, it has that weird third, lyric tricks, messing with structure and perspective and stuff. Like the third person referring yourself in the third person kind of thing. There's like the whole like Michael built a bridge, Michael tore it down.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It's a real it's a relationship song.
Yeah.
It's a love song. But I like that lyric a lot.
Okay.
I like that self-referential part.
I like those just that repetition. I think that like that is where it's strongest, the way that they vary that. Courage built a bridge, jealousy tore it down, fever built a bridge, reason tore it down.
Yeah.
Like it leans into something that R.E.M. does, which is kind of sets up simple poeticism by directly contradicting themselves. He can be reached, he can be reached, he must not be reached. Stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I dig that. I just think that this is musically the worst example of what people accuse this album of. It's very moody wallpaper. Is the sense that I get to it. Like things are buried in it. It's mixed all muddy. Like I can't get into it. Like looking at the lyrics, I can appreciate where it's at. I feel like we're switching places, Gary.
It's real weird, but I think that it makes a sense because at the very least, because I think this is, at least to me, and maybe I could be alone in this, but like it feels like it's a real different kind of lyric sense than he does. There's more of that kind of like early R.E.M. is very abstract.
Yeah.
But it's abstract in terms of the content of the words, like how they string together. This is the first album where they start being those kind of like messing with syntax and messing with perspective and kind of prose styles and stuff. And that's something that I appreciate, like in all of my lyricists, like all my favorite lyricists do that. And maybe I'm picking up on it so hard because he doesn't do it in other albums really.
Yeah.
Like this doesn't feel like something he adds to his quiver so much. This happens sometimes, but the next album is going to really, really change gears on that.
Yeah.
So this is kind of when he's doing this thing that, I really, really love when like David Bowie does it or Dan Bayard does it or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also a rarity, and this can work for or against it, which is this is a love song. It's about a relationship. He's, Cahotek is a comet that showed up over the South. He's using that as kind of a metaphor for the way the relationship came and went. They don't do that very much. They don't have songs that are as directly about relationships as this one is.
Yeah. I also the lyrics that I'm reading have this is different, but I really like the kind of transition into the chorus, at least my headcanon version of it, where he says, it sounds like he's saying like you left me high, and then he holds high, and the high or I thought he was saying I'm not Cahotek. So the lyrics I'm reading say something different than that, but that's always how I interpreted it. So taking that like transitioning that high into I'm, using the same word kind of thing. I always really liked that as well. Which again, who knows if it's doing it? But
I take any lyrics listings before reveal with a grain of salt.
Yeah, very much so. And there's no video for this, so who knows? So he didn't present it. But yeah, it is. I will say that it is another one of these middle of the road R.E.M. songs. Like that's what kind of defines this album. Where the next song is one of the like 3 dark songs.
Yes.
It's not like an album that is full of dark moodiness. It's Old Man Kenzie, Feeling Gravity's Pull, and Another Engine, Auctioneer, Another Engine.
Yes.
Which is weird. This is their 9/9 for this record. Like this is their like kind of twitchy, wire kind of punk sounding thing.
Yeah. This works a lot better for me. than 9/9 does. I don't know if it's just because there's a stronger through line in the chorus with them just intentionally not harmonizing, like just hitting that dissonant note on let me see here. Oh gosh, the lyrics are a mess and I can't remember the words, but you know what I'm talking about. Like the chorus ties it together much better, I think.
Yeah.
Than I think 9/9 has, which feels a little bit too scattered to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about this one. There's a couple lyrics I like in this a lot.
Yeah.
Like the, take this nickel, make a dime, like that kind of thing I appreciate.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. But the kind of like listen to the bargain hauler part, like there's a couple too many repetitions of something that I think is too static in this for me. And it's kind of got that speak singing kind of part during the part of it, the another engine part.
Yeah.
Another, he's just kind of like saying it over and over. It feels like it's trying to pound me into submission, but the music feels not quite like robust enough for me. Like there's not enough going on. Like I can appreciate being pounded into submission by music.
Yeah.
Pounded in the butt by my own submission to music. But it's like a weird, like it's a little too skeletal for that.
Yeah. It's very sparse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This doesn't work for me so much. Like I don't hate it. There's no songs on this album I hate.
Right.
But this does not work for me very strongly. It's not too bad. I like it about as much as I like 9/9, but I don't think I was as cool as 9/9 as you were.
Yeah.
While still not liking it very much, but I don't hate that song either.
Yeah.
Meh.
Yeah, a little bit. I kind of wish they would have committed to the nothing ringing out on the post chorus guitar. It feels like they retreated to having a traditional guitar line in this, almost out of fear. Like, okay, it needs to happen somewhere, so let's just put it here before we get into the weird stuff again.
Yeah, I mean, there's a solo.
Yeah.
In it, that happens. It's I guess this would, if you take this with Can't Get There From Here, it makes this kind of weird through line of maybe a lack of kind of versatility on Buck's part.
Yeah.
Which is something he'll get better at, I think. But I could accept that read that early on he's maybe not great at going outside his comfort zone.
Yeah. Well, and this is before he really started playing around with different instruments too.
That's true.
Yeah. So the next one here, Good Advices. This song just lies there. This song is a puddle.
Yeah. It's real middle of the road R.E.M. That I like the lyrics of.
Wow. I don't like the lyrics very much.
No, I don't know.
It's just a bunch of maxims.
It is a bunch of issues of maxim in a garage waiting to be set on fire.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is, to me, I think maybe what I'm picking up on here in liking this is that when I talk about like the directness and indirectness contrasting really well, like there's not very much indirectness in this song, but the album has been really good about not being this forward, other than like Kohoutek, which still has kind of some obfuscation, and then this kind of just like series of declarative statements as a thing, like kind of works for me. It's I think this is too slow paced. Yep. Like I said, this is not my favorite song of the album. Like I think this is pretty middling.
Defend yourself. Defend why you do not hate this as much as I do.
Yeah, I can't bring myself to hate it. Like I think this album has a really good batting average. Like there's nothing on this I dislike as much as I dislike the Raga from the last album.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing I want to skip through.
Yeah.
I think that this does, and this is something we're going to see in Life's Rich Pageant as well. And it's kind of weird for me because all the reading I'm doing really complements them on this. I think that like R.E.M. in this middle period of albums, and this definitely goes true for Document, is not doing a very good job with sequencing.
No,
these records. Like this is Auctioneer is kind of a wake up thing, but this second side. Is pretty sleepy.
Yep.
On this record, even when it's good. Like I love Green Grove the Rushes. I like Wendell G a lot. This is a pretty sleepy side of the record. There isn't anything that like sound, even Another Engine, which is, you thought R.E.M. couldn't rock. Like it's not, it's too, it's not dynamic enough to be like awake as something like Driver 8 is.
Yeah. They should have taken some of the spine from the first part of the album and then like redistributed it.
And that's going to be such a thing on the next record.
Yeah.
Like, which is so top heavy. So it is like, I mean, like a puddle is a pretty good way to put it. I just, it's an average middle of the road REM song. It's just, like, this is like a B minus.
Well, when I say it's lazy, I'm not talking about the effort that was put into it, because it's very well produced, all that stuff. It rises to their standard. It is lazy in its pacing. It is lazy and languid in a way that in a way that the rest of the album hasn't conditioned me for.
Yeah. I think that it just, again, the series of declarative statements, and then the directness, like this, this lyrics where it's like, at the end of the day, when there are no friends and there are no lovers, like when the song kind of breaks out from that, I think is really strong.
Yeah.
Like it at least has like one of those like individual moments that I think is really strong.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about Wendell G, because I like this. This is a fantastic closer.
This is really cute and good. This also has a really good story behind it.
Apparently there's a town where everybody's related so much that they all share the last name.
Yeah, well, not literally, but that was their joke, because they would drive through and they'd be like, "Oh, this is Wendell. This is Wendell G's used cars, and this is Robert G's laundry," and like everybody was like a G in the title. And then this turned out to be true. Like people looked it up afterwards, and actual Wendell G died like 20 years after the song was written.
Yeah,
something like that. I've seen his obituary. But it's such a real cute idea,
Yeah, it is like one of those quirky Southern town kind of things where, like, one family, owns a lot of businesses. Like, like this is, they're real big wheels in this town.
Yeah. Yep. The G's down at the Cracker Factory.
Yeah.
And this is just a really, really sweet kind of banjo led, like, it almost sounds like something Kermit the Frog would sing to me. Like, doesn't it, like the whistle as the wind blows through me, like that sounds like a Kermit the Frog lyric to me.
Yeah, it kind of does. I think that the banjo might be skewing you there.
Oh yeah.
but it's definitely there, and I think that another reason why you might be hooking onto that, this is incredibly sincere and earnest.
Yeah.
Right. Like, depictions of the South in media tend to be kind of unflattering in a lot of ways. Like, like just a shit kicking hill folk, any number of things. Like in the South, if somebody is from there, they are, rubes. They fell off the turnip truck, any number of hurtful, harmful things. This is, something that doesn't embrace that, but says like, yeah, like there is so much to love about this. There's genuine affection for home in this.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's really sweet and good hearted, and it's a really nice like kind of send off. Like when they do, R.E.M. chooses a couple of different ways to like end their albums. I think that they, there are a couple of different beginnings. You either begin with a rocker or you begin with like an intentional down note. But the endings are kind of all over the place, and this is one of my favorites because this feels like a sweet goodbye, to a thing that is very nostalgic and kind of like home driven.
Yeah. Recorded as far away from home as they had been at that point.
Yeah.
At least in their professional lives.
Yeah.
Doing their job.
Yeah. I like this song a lot. I think this is one of their stronger album closers.
Yep.
There's a bunch of kind of outtakes and B-sides and stuff.
Yes, there are. I forgot to make a note of the Troll song, although I did listen to it on the remasters.
Let's I want to talk about that for a second, because it's I think that's the only one that is like a studio outtake from this. It's not a B-side. It's a song called "Throw Those Trolls Away." It's very much in a unfinished state.
Yeah.
Here, I think the lyrics during the verses of that are really cool.
Yeah.
And what that turned into, those lyrics turned into "I Believe," the next album. But I think it is much like in "I Believe," he talks about it being his spirit.
Yeah.
On the original version, he says he refers to it as his medium. Like, and I really like, when I was young and full of hate, my medium was a rattlesnake. Like I really like the idea of a person having a medium.
Yep. I prefer that to just talking about a spirit.
Yeah, like very much so. And like, I think that, and then it's got that whole, like, when I was young and the wind would move and I would move and I was young because my medium was a parachute. Like this whole like thing, it's like really kind of good. I think the verses of that song are good. And then the chorus is the dumbest thing this band has ever fucking done.
Yep.
Don't be a loser. Throw those trolls away. Like, it's so fucking stupid.
I don't understand.
Like, don't be a loser. Like, what is it? It's like from the soundtrack of Revenge of the Nerds or something. Like, throw those trolls away.
Yeah.
Dun, dun. Like,
it is so hard. It is so hard to look past that.
Yeah, it's an excruciating chorus.
And I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know. So it's hard to look at this in 2017 and see trolls as anything but, eggs on Twitter. I know that, I know that's not the case. I know that's just a ridiculous thing. They're not talking about troll dolls. Are they talking about the Scandinavian mythological beasts? I don't understand, Gary.
I assumed that it was something like, because he talks about these parts of his, the other parts are talking about his life, like the old parts of his life. And that's what I assume it is. It's like, take the junk out, get rid of this junk that you had. I'm trying to find the part in Can't Get Here From There, to get the context of those throw the trolls out the door thing. But there's there's no additional insight there.
Yeah.
It's such a frustrating thing because it's like, I feel like if it had made it onto the album and they had worked it up, it could have been one, it sounds pretty awake and good, other than the breakdown in the chorus. If they'd worked on it, made a better chorus, this could have spiced up the second half of this record.
Yeah. And it also would have been a better version of I Believe.
Yeah. I Believe is, not my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah.
It is the sanitized version of that. But the chorus is really worth hearing just for it's not Jazz Lips bad, but it is really, really bad.
It's misguided.
Yeah. And a work in progress, and they never, it wasn't even supposed to be released. I can't blame them that much.
Right.
They never, they didn't put it out. They didn't put it on the record, so they probably agreed. But I just think that there's a seed of something really good there that they didn't follow up on.
Yeah. Bandwagon is one that I think almost made it into a demo. This is kind of marked for me by Stipe singing in this kind of exaggerated Southern drawl, like he's in his Elvis impersonation on it, and it's hard to see past that.
I think this would have been because this was a B-side, I think for Can't Get There From Here.
Okay,
and makes a good song with that because it is another goofy kind of comedy song. It feels like. Come on aboard. It's him being kind of silly.
Yeah, it's just King of the Road voice.
Yeah, and would have made it, maybe Can't Get There From Here sound a little bit less out of place. I've always liked Bandwagon. I first heard that on Dead Letter Office.
Yeah,
where the B-side kind of compilation. But Bandwagon is a good song. I understand why it's not on the record, but I think it's a good song.
Burning Hell exists in two versions. There's the demo and there's the studio. I prefer the demo. Specifically because it does not have Michael Stipe doing Michael Stipe is improving your experience.
Improving your Stipe experience.
No. But because it doesn't have Stipe doing David Lee Roth screams over it.
Yeah. But this again is a novelty song.
Yes.
It is such a, even down to the lyrics, hey baby, if you got the picnic, I got the ants. It is them being super silly.
Yeah.
The Ages of You finally made it onto a B-side. And Burning Down.
We talk about how Ages of You never got its due. It's the song we've talked about most.
And we'll continue to. That's not true. This is actually the last appearance of Ages of You. Now that's shown up on a thing. But both those finally ended up on B-sides.
That and Burning Down.
After being studio demoed 1,000 times.
Yeah.
They recorded a cover of their friend Pylon, their song Crazy.
Yep.
Which I like this cover a lot.
Yes.
It's real good.
Yep. It has that dark kind of roominess to it that Pylon has and that R.E.M. can bring to something. It's really good.
When they were recording it, there's a cute anecdote. They didn't, Michael Stipe couldn't figure out the lyrics in the original version and called them to get the lyrics, but they just said no, just do it, go for it, So this is, there are parts that are kind of mumbled past, and this really does feel like a murmur style R.E.M. song a little bit.
Yeah.
Because of how roomy and murky it is, and how the lyrics are not distinct.
Yeah.
There's also, and we'll talk about the song more, but they also demoed Hyena.
Yes.
Which shows up on Life Search Pageant, but they didn't end up putting it on the album.
Right. Because it was too fast for this.
Yeah. Yeah. For what this record ended up ultimately being. Yeah. So yeah, and that's Fables of the Reconstruction of the Fables of the Reconstruction and stuff.
The Fables of the Reconstruction. Do we want to do favorites and least favorites?
Yeah. Yeah. Just kind of in wrapping up, like I said, I ended up kind of reminding myself this was my favorite R.E.M. album for a long time. And that's not ridiculous.
No.
I think it's really, really good. you have to have a tolerance and appreciation for those MOR, REM songs.
Yes. MOR
Like,
being middle of the road. Yeah.
Yeah. Like those kind of just like, this is an REM song. It's kind of mid tempo. It's going to do the same kind of chords that they do a lot. Same kind of vocal melodies, the same kind of like transitions.
Yeah. It's a weird album for me. I've kind of always enjoyed it again because, you've heard me talk on previous episodes how I love dark REM, when they're willing to kind of lean into, again, just kind of like lean into the more violent side or lean into some of the more unseemly kind of things. That said, outside of Driver 8, which is a song that I listen to a lot, it's hard to actually like make a poll, like make a poll and say, hey, here are like the 3 or 4 songs off of this that I will listen to kind of out of context. Like a lot of my REM listening was when I was like in middle school and high school, right after I got like a CD burner and like I pulled down and like, made my own like mixes and stuff. But this is kind of always has songs that I don't listen to outside of the context of just listening to the entire album straight.
Yeah. I mean, I will pull some things from it, like Driver 8 is obvious. I love that song. But there are some of those MOR kind of songs I really love. Like I really love Green Grow the Rushes.
Yeah.
I think that's probably like my dark horse favorite
on
this album. Driver 8's probably my favorite, but disqualifying that the same way we disqualified Harbor Coat.
Right.
I love Green Grow the Rushes. I think that song is really melodically strong and fun to sing along with and good. Not lyrically my favorite, but like, very melodically strong. For me, this album is kind of defined by, rather than its kind of cohesiveness, but there are things that like the weird dark REM stuff on this album I will skip. Not so much Feeling Gravity's Pull, which is my favorite of the weird dark stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't like Auctioneer. I think I like just straight up like really don't like that song. And then Old Man Kenzie, which I like, I'm not always in the mood for.
Yeah.
It is not melodically appealing in a way that like gets me kind of moving or singing along in a way that I want to.
Yeah.
I guess. It's good. Like I think that song's good, but it's not. So for me, that kind of middle of the road REM, standard ass REM song, that is the strength of this album, is kind of what I'm going to it for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some of the things that stand out, I like a little less because of that, which is weird because usually it's the opposite. But
right. But yeah, I mean, like this is still in the Reckoning, the Reckoning style breadbasket. Like a lot of the great stuff that sticks out from this is stuff that probably was devised during that time of just incredible creative fertility.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Maps and Legends is kind of a runner up for me in terms of just really, really liking it. On that, for a favorite, it would have to be somewhere between. So the 2 contenders would be Feeling Gravity's Pull and Old Man Kenzie. I'm gonna go with Feeling Gravity's Pull just because of how off the wall it is. I love the lyrics in it. I love the surreality, the arrangement, and the production. You're not gonna. It feels so unlike anything else, and it feels like it definitely is emblematic of this album to me. Even if like we've discussed, it only represents a small portion of it. And for a least favorite, I've got to go with Good Advices.
Oh yeah, not going for Cahotek, eh?
No, I can. The Cahotek has lyrics. Working in its favor. It also has the organ, and it's moody enough to make it like not a skip. Good Advices, I just don't think there's an awful lot to recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, I like in no world do I think Good Advices. Like I would have rather had a polished up version of Throw Those Trolls Away.
Yeah.
Instead of that, or even Hyena or something. Something that made this a little bit more awake, or Bandwagon in the place of that. Even if I do like that song.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Feeling Gravity's Pull out of the weird ones, I think is my favorite.
Yeah,
on here for sure. Yeah, good, real good album.
Yep.
I like it a lot.
It was a lot of fun to go back and listen to.
Yeah, I've been listening to it like pretty much nonstop.
It's been nice because I'm home during the day a lot of the time, and so I can play music loud because my downstairs neighbor isn't there. So like picture me like sitting in my living room with this blasting over like surround sound.
Yeah. The album works real well for that. I've been listening to this and Life's First Pageant in the shower a lot. And it kind of, with Life's First Pageant, it kind of works out a little bit better because that album starts so much better than it ends. So that's most of what I've been listening to. But I'm looking forward to talking about that, which we're going to do right now in real time, but in 2 weeks for you guys. We should talk a little bit about how we're going to do the feedback episode.
Yes.
To give people some time. I mean, this is getting out way in front of it, but just so you guys know, if you guys, we've been trying to, we like feedback's a big part of the network. We want people to be able to tell us what they think about the stuff we talk about. So we are going to record a version of our Dead Letter Office episode will be your letters and your deaths.
Oh no.
So since we've already talked about those B-sides, we're not going to talk about the albums that are actually, or the songs that are actually on Dead Letter Office, unless there's anything that we miss. But we're going to do a clearinghouse episode where we kind of take stock, talk about any songs we missed, and then also read kind of your thoughts on what we've done so far.
Yeah. So if you want to write in for that, you can go to duckfeed.tv/contact, or there's a contact tab on fileunderwater.net where you can send those in. We're looking for anything and everything. It doesn't just have to be about the songs that we have spoken about so far, or the albums we've spoken about so far.
Tell us your favorite R.E.M. song and why. Tell us about things like that, because we don't know how many of those we're going to do.
Right.
Like that. This could literally be the time we do it. So, and we might do another one near the end. Yeah. But this isn't going to be frequent, as you can tell by the fact that it's showing up as the 6th episode of the show. Or 7th episode of the show. So hit us up with that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Something that's going to be very important. So we really enjoy doing this show. We're going to continue until the very end, just because we're very passionate about this. Not a lot of people listen to it. So we usually make this call for people to help spread the word. We never pay to advertise anything. We rarely have done that in the past. Probably not going to do it for this show. If you have friends, if you know people who like podcasts, like R.E.M., please help spread the word so we can grow this one a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the would be like an SOS if we were more mercenary.
Yeah.
Would be a save our show kind of situation.
Right.
Fundraiser thing, but we like doing it, and it's been such a joy to go back and literally discover new songs from one of my favorite bands. That we're not going to stop doing it.
Right.
But we would love it if more people listen to it, and we understand it's a niche. It's not only is it just a music show, it's a music show about one specific band on a network that's primarily about video games.
Right. So
we get it. But if you like the show, now is the time to rate and review it and tell people about it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're happy to file this one under a passion project or a vanity project. But it's more fun when there's more of you here.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be great to have more people to talk to about this stuff. So please do so. The other thing you can do, if you want to kind of support, the reason why we're able to take time making a show that not a lot of people listen to is because we are supported by Patreon, by our patrons. So if you go to patreon.com/duckfeed.tv, you can, if you don't already support us, you can choose to give us a few bucks a month, get into our Slack channel, get early episodes, things like that. That's super important.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody who's listening to this probably listens to our other shows.
I think so. Yeah.
So there's probably not, those other things.
Yes.
So I guess really your call to action is just get some friends.
Yep.
Bring them along. Not in general, but bring them to us.
Yes. Get us some friends.
Action,
get us some
friends. A fucking loser. That's not. Yeah. Get popular, dingus. That's not what I mean. I just mean get us some friends.
Yes.
Bring some friends.
We're the dinguses here.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Indeed, we are the dinguses here.
Yep. But if you're hearing this, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being with us, and stick around next time for Life's Rich Pageant.
Yes. And until next time, it is the end of the show as we know it.
And we feel fine.